now the podcast starts. Hello, and welcome to the second of our And Now the Podcast Starts series of movie review and discussion podcasts focusing on the Halloween franchise. We are your hosts, Howard, and this is Dan.
Hello everybody, I'm Dan again, welcome back, and we are joined once again, as on the previous episode, by Dan B.
Hello, I'm back.
Hello, Dan.
The night I came back.
We've decided to devote an entire series of podcasts to the Halloween series, dealing with each film in detail in anticipation of the new movie coming out in October 2018, ingeniously titled Halloween.
Spoiler alert.
Indeed. That was the voice of our special guest for this episode, who is the wonderful Rob Stuart-Hudson.
Hello, yes, that's me, Rob Stuart-Hudson. Sorry for shouting things out.
It's alright, so that's what you're here for. Rob, I put a shout out on Facebook asking for fans of the Halloween franchise to contribute to this series, and you got in touch with me and said, I'm not really a fan of the Halloween franchise, I was more of a Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street kind of guy.
Yeah, that's right. I remember watching Halloween years ago, but it was on like a VHS video that I think I bought it from a pound shop or something like that. But I'd always been a fan of those franchises you mentioned earlier on, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street first, because those are the ones I snuck downstairs to watch after dark. Those are the ones that I've got a nostalgic feel for. So in many ways I prefer them. I know that they came after Halloween and that was the precursor because it was early slasher film. But I don't know, I just always liked those ones more. There was always something, I think it's pure nostalgia because I've seen those more.
Well, I mean, I thought it was interesting to get you on the podcast.
Yeah.
From that perspective, really. So what was it about those kind of movies and I guess slasher movies in general maybe that you liked?
Well, I was talking to my wife about this the other night actually because we were trying to rewatch them recently, the Halloween films, 1 and 2 specifically, and we were trying to watch it last night, and she hates horror films of any description. She puts images in my mind, she doesn't like them, but she's also a psychiatrist, so she's also got loads of reasons why. She also knows why, because she instantly went on the phone and looked it up. And there's something psychological about watching horror films. There's loads of research done into it, and they think that people who like horror films have got a very low emotional intelligence.
Oh, right. That's certainly true.
Yeah. So that's what we all are. So she thinks I've got a low emotional intelligence, which is fine, you know. I can accept that. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just means you like different things and you get different things out of different things. Yeah. She felt very anxious watching it, and she couldn't actually watch the rest of it the first Halloween. She had to go upstairs and leave. But I stayed down to watch it because I'm a masochist. But those images don't stay with me necessarily, although recently as a dad, there's a slight tangent, as a dad, I've only became a dad 2 years ago, and I used to love watching these horror films, as you said, Nightmare on Elm Street, with children being killed and teenagers and things like that, and it never actually felt bad for me to watch because I'd just be like, I could separate it definitely. And I used to watch It, Stephen King's It, which is slightly different genre but still sort of creepy, and I watched the remake of It recently on the cinema, and the little boy in it that gets killed at the beginning, spoiler alert, he looked exactly like my son.
Oh.
And I was just like, oh no, what? And he gets his arm pulled off and everything, and I was watching it like going, oh no, this is not right. And it taps into a whole other side of emotion side of you. That said, I didn't feel those emotions watching Halloween particularly, because I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's because they weren't kids. I don't know how old Jamie Lee Curtis was in Halloween 1 and 2. She certainly wasn't 2. No, but and she doesn't look anything like my son. So the voice is different for a start. So yeah, maybe that's why I didn't get as affected.
Do you think? I mean, when you used to enjoy other slasher movies, did they scare you, or did you kind of find them more fun? And do you think that if you watch them again now from a parent's point of view, you'd find them disturbing or in a different or get something different out of them?
Some of them I found very scary. The very first Nightmare on Elm Street was terrifying. Really, really was. First time you watch it, anyway.
Agreed.
The imagery of it and the idea of it. You fall asleep and you die. Yeah, that bit. Dan, for those of you on the radio, which is everyone, Dan's just doing the big long wobbly arms that
down the alley.
Yeah.
The sides.
Which looks, and you look back on it now and you think, oh god, practical effects wise, that looks a bit weird. But I think it's precisely because it looks so weird and ungainly. It's very dreamlike. Lots of that sequence of those films are set in a dream. So it looks like a weird dream that a person could actually have, and it's not CGI, which looks weird and fake and rubbish, always. But because it's this practical effect of canes on arms and stuff, it looks like a weird, creepy dream, and that image is very, very terrifying. And a lot of other images in that film, with him coming through the wall and the glove coming out of the bath and stuff. It's all very nightmarish, which is effective. I think some of them are very scary. Some of them are ridiculous, like some of the later Nightmare on Elm Street, especially the Friday the 13th. But
I remember the girl at the start, and she's getting cut across the stomach and stuff. That was really nightmarish.
Definitely.
And then Johnny Depp gets pulled into the bed, and guys from blood comes out.
That's something that's very interesting, actually. A difference between what I noticed last night because I've not seen Halloween for ages or Halloween 2. And watching those again and comparing them with what in my mind is a slasher film, there's barely any gore at all in Halloween 1. And there's a little bit more in 2. Obviously with the sequel you heighten stuff. But there's barely any gore in it. And you compare that to Nightmare on Elm Street's budget, I was looking this up last night, I think it was 1.8 million. Which is nothing at all.
No, really.
And there's blood and guts and the effects. But in Halloween, I'm trying to think of a standout. It's beautifully shot, and there's long shots, and there's lots of different things in there. But there's not much gore necessarily, if at all. So I thought that was an interesting difference. I think I think they just added more gore and more mad kills. That's became for the films later series.
Yeah, I mean, I think producers kind of realised that. Although it's probably a little bit more expensive to have gore than no gore, it's not much more expensive.
No,
and a bucket of blood is probably costs as much as a drop. So the late movies kind of splash it around a lot.
I think when they got to things like Hostel and things like that, they use the term gornography.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, is that?
So it's like almost torture.
Torture porn.
Yeah,
I didn't know the pornography.
But gornography, that was also a term.
Yeah, I mean they are very, very gruesome, and everything is shown. Nothing's actually imagination. You see everything. Somebody's going to be ripped to pieces.
It's also done very realistically as well.
They're
like, this is what would scientifically happen if your tendons were cut and things like that.
And of course, special effects now can.
But also with Halloween and with Nightmare on Elm Street, there is the supernatural, almost kind of ethereal kind of mystery of stuff. With that, it's just let's see how many ways I can cut into a human being.
That's what it's about.
I think there's a kind of romance to those kind of more supernatural horror movies, which is one of the things that I find appealing, which there isn't really to a kind of Hostel type movie.
Wrong turn.
Well, let's not go there just yet.
No.
We'll come to that.
That is a wrong turn.
I get too angry.
I mean,
the only wrong turn I took for that was into that cinema screen.
Wow. Well, we'll definitely come to wrong turn because
please let's not.
Well, I mean, not necessarily in this episode, but
right.
It is written by the guy who wrote Halloween 4.
Okay.
So
is that the curse or the return? Or
that's the return.
Or the table or the kitchen? The bathroom of Michael Myers.
I'll tell you, apparently the new Halloween film, as I said, they've decided to call it Halloween, but at one point it was going to be called Halloween Returns, because they obviously couldn't think of anything better. But then somebody obviously kind of pointed out, Halloween returns every year. It's not unusual.
Are we having Halloween this year? Straight to November, forget it.
I'm cancelling Halloween.
It's very confusing to call it Halloween when the first film was called Halloween.
And then the remake was called Halloween as well.
Yeah. So you got 3 Halloweens. And Halloween, the new film, is a sequel to Halloween.
Should have called it Samhain.
I mean, I think it's that kind of stuff. I think you can put down to the internet. If this was 20 years ago and 2 movies had the same name, you would have to find a book that told you which was which and
Yeah.
what years they were from. Whereas now everybody can just do it on the smartphone, and they just expect
They
you
usually
to know.
stick. They usually stick the year on it.
Brackets,
Usually,
2018.
brackets, such and such. Yeah.
It must be confusing for Jamie Lee Curtis because she was in the sequel, which we're talking about, Halloween 2,
Yeah.
as the same character, and then she was in Halloween H2O, which was like 20 years later, and which is now being completely discounted.
Yeah.
And she was also in
Was it
the sequel to that? Resurrection
Yeah.
was the sequel to that. Which
Which
so she must be like, I'm not sure who I am anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm probably getting chased by the shark.
And paid quite a lot.
Well, possibly not, according to her, actually. She seems to say she's just doing it for the love these days.
Doing it for the love.
Interesting.
Good love for serial killer.
If you check out some of the interviews she's doing to promote the new movie, she's very passionate about the subject matter. It's about post-traumatic stress and things like that.
I was reading one interview and she was saying that it was a very women empowering. She was talking about the Me Too movement and things like that. That it was kind of that's her. She's a victim of abuse almost, or that PTSD kind of angle on it. So that's why I'm interested to see it. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think there could be something interesting there if the
different.
all male writers have have explored that.
We know how women feel.
It's get their boobies out.
That's the point. It's interesting the difference with the first one, isn't it? Because as I was watching it last night with my wife, and she was just going, all this film is about is just a bloke chasing women who have just had sex. That's all that happens in this film. There's no plot. And I was like, well, yeah. But she's looked into it and she was just like, this is part of why the majority of these films are aimed at young teenage guys, because there's a thing called the cuddle factor, and it's men feel good watching these films when they're watching it with a woman who is scared, and they can then comfort that woman, and the woman then feels better that they're being comforted, and it's psychological, and it doesn't, it's all very vague, and it's not individual, but it's on a general basis. That's
You've got the adrenaline going. Pumping.
There's a really interesting interview with Mustafa Akkad, the producer, financier of the Halloween franchise. Right. You might have seen. I think it might have been on the one you watched.
Yes,
he said his son explained to him because he didn't know what the appeal was. And he said, and his son told him it's exactly what he wants to take a girl to the cinema, and when she gets scared, he puts her arm around her. And at the end of the interview, he goes,
he puts her arm around her. I like that. I love that sentence.
You never know that.
That's a scene from a Halloween film. There you go. There's your arm around your own shoulder. Look after yourself.
That could be a scene.
I'm writing that immediately. At the end of the interview, Mustafa Akkad says his son finally said to him, and the next day I'll go to see the film again with a different girl.
And I'll have a collection of arms by then.
So the guy thought, not only is this got an appeal, but the same girl will go and see the movie several times. This is going to really work financially.
That's the money. That's the money side.
I think it'd be interesting to explore, just to talk for a minute about how we all kind of relate to or have experiences of other slasher franchises, like you've been talking about, Rob, because my situation was that I've seen all the Halloweens because I love that Halloween one so much, but I was never that interested. I mean, even when watching it, I thought, I know that this movie has a load of terrible sequels. I won't watch the sequels. I'll just watch the original classic film. But I did love it so much, and it intrigued me so much that I wanted to see more, and I ended up watching all the terrible.
I agree with you. You do at some point want to see like what happens next, even though it's it's done for the money or it's done for a cash in. There's something in you if you're interested to just go, I wonder what happens next. I wonder how this person moves on. Do they then go home?
Although, so I did also watch the first Friday the 13th and the first Nightmare on Elm Street. And I didn't watch any of the sequels with those. In Friday the 13th case, because I didn't like the original. And in Nightmare on Elm Street's case, I did like it a lot, but I just thought it is sufficient. I didn't feel like I need to see more of it. I feel, in a way, I still kind of want to watch the supposedly good ones, which are People Tell Me Part 3 and The New Nightmare.
Part 3 is good.
Part 3 is good.
In other words,
the Dream Warriors.
I've got a bit of a soft spot for all of them, to be honest with you. I think the reason they tried to... I think Halloween can be remade several times because the lead character is faceless and is just a big hulking figure and doesn't have necessarily he doesn't speak, so he doesn't have that. And in Friday the 13th, the same, the killer being Jason with a mask and doesn't have that. He's sort of anonymous in that way. He's got his own character and he's big and hulking, but he's not. But when they made Nightmare on Elm Street, they wanted it deliberately different. They wanted him to have. He said Wes Craven said he wanted him to have a mask, but he wanted him to be able to speak through the mask. So he's got that sort of horrible burn, but he also talks and taunts and he does all these little quips and jokes and things, but he's also cruel and likes to talk. They wanted it different, and they tried to remake it recently, didn't they, with
Jackie
Earle, and I watched it and it was actually quite good.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was right, wasn't it? But it just didn't quite take off because people just didn't like that character that without Robert Englund playing it. They just couldn't quite buy into it.
Because they took it a very serious route, didn't they? There was like a child kind of paedophile kind
they
of
changed in the original one. He was meant to be a child molester. He wrote it in the script, child molester, that word. Yeah. But then there was a spate of like horrible kidnappings in America when it came out around like 84, I think. Yeah. So he had Wes Craven changed it to murderer, which obviously is nicer. Another M word, and that was apparently more palatable to the studio. Yeah. They went, all right, fine, child murderer.
What I did like about the remake is they kind of, I don't know if they do, I can't really remember if they do it in the originals or in some of the sequels, but when they're awake yet dreaming, and you kind of go into that world without knowing it. You go into the dream world without knowing it.
It was a thing they called micronaps.
That was it.
They brought it into sort of like this thing of you're so exhausted that like when you're falling asleep at the wheel kind of thing.
Exactly.
Not that I've ever done that, please. But that thing of when you feel like you're about to nod off, but you're instantly in a dream. Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was good, but I enjoyed it. Like it wasn't a perfect film, but I still thought it was pretty good as remakes go. Horror remakes go.
Yeah, still bought it on Blu-ray. 50p from my local library. They were having a sale.
Howard, you've been a little bit quiet.
Yeah.
Are you?
Sorry.
Are you interested in any of these other slasher films?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of the slasher genre. I suppose it's because I grew up watching Hammer films, and that to me, an Amicus film, that's my thing. I was watching these things in the 80s when I have a feeling that the first slasher film I actually saw was a film called The Burning. Which was produced by Harvey Weinstein.
Sure.
And it was sort of around about the time.
Speaking of child
Yes.
Weirdly,
how did I think of it?
I saw that recently, and I was like, oh god, he's produced it. Oh, it's like in one of his first films, and big success. It's like, oh god.
You can't watch it.
There's even a scene in it where this guy's watching women shower or something, and they're talking about sexual assault, and I'm like, what? How is he kind of condemning?
That's because that's what they do. But it's because I kind of lived through. I was quite young, but I sort of lived through the whole video nasty.
Of course.
When all these horror films were banned or whatever, really controversial. And of course, when a film was banned, you really want to see it. So especially when you're about 13, 14 years old.
Precisely the opposite.
Yeah, it has the opposite effect. And so we try and get these. I think The Burning was banned or something. But so somehow I managed to get a copy. So we went round to a friend's house and watched this film. And it's quite gruesome, and somebody gets their fingers chopped off by a pair of shears and all this sort of thing. But it is a complete rip-off of Friday the 13th. They go to a summer camp and they get killed. And I thought, it's okay, but perhaps it's not really my thing. There's not much of a story there. The characters aren't very engaging, that sort of thing. Actually, I don't know when I watched Halloween, because Halloween was the film that made me realise that a slasher film could be a great film. It wasn't, I don't know. I remember there was a film called House on Sorority Row, which was the first slasher film on telly. Yeah. And at the time I was amazed, my God, they're showing a slasher. Because slasher films at the time were taboo. They were not sure. And this was a film, as a slasher film, it's fairly mild. It's not that gruesome, or if they cut it out, perhaps, I don't know. But I watched it and thought, that's better. That was all right. That was. So I think it just depends on the actual film itself, whether some slasher films are better made than others. And some are. There's a film called the original version of My Bloody Valentine, which I mentioned before, has been shown on the Horror Channel, and that is very, very gruesome. As some guy gets a pickaxe in his face, it goes up his neck and comes out of his eye, kind of thing. And I thought, well, that's pretty strong stuff.
I'm a big fan of practical effects like that. I like to see those.
Yeah, it wasn't CGI in those days and sort of thing. And that's the kind of thing that. See, you were saying about being a parent might change your perception. Yeah. I think as you get older, you do change your opinion about horror films. You do become more averse to gore and there's one of my favourite films called Theatre of Blood, which is a from 1973. It's not a slasher film. Vincent Price kills all the critics, gave him bad reviews.
What kind of is a slasher film in a way?
In real life.
Yeah, there's a lot of. And it is quite gruesome. And when I was 14, 15 years old watching that, it was the gore, it was the bloody murders I liked.
Yeah.
Now when I watch it, it's the performances, it's the wit, it's the script, it's and the gore is, I don't mind it, I don't mind gore.
Yeah.
I don't mind,
Yeah.
But your tolerance of it, I think, changes as you get older. You become more aware of
Your
own
mortality.
yes, and other people's mortality. Death isn't quite something you can be quite so.
My father-in-law's like
insensitive
that.
about.
My father-in-law's terrified of Halloween. Well, not terrified of Halloween, but again, my wife was telling me this. He doesn't like celebrating Halloween necessarily because I'm married into a family of doctors, and he's a retired consultant, and he's used to seeing death, as you say, in real life. So. They always used to have Halloween parties every single year where, they'd hang up a skeleton and they'd go, ooh, and let's make some blood jelly and all that sort of stuff. And he never liked it. He was always uncomfortable around it for that reason. He was look, I see enough of this shit.
Yeah.
So don't take the piss out of death. It's not.
As you get older, more people you know die. 5 people I went to school with have died.
Yeah.
Which is just, and it just makes you think.
That was a little school trip.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Sorry.
But maybe I
killed them.
They gave me a bad review.
I think maybe you are right, because I mean, as a youngster, as a teenager, you think you're invincible. You think you're like, this will.
But you have a different attitude.
Yeah.
And Halloween, the reason I love Halloween is because it's not gruesome and gory. There's so many other things about it which you can like. You can admire the cinematography, the music, and everything, and just the way it's put together. That film can, maybe when you're 15 you like it because it's a horror film and people get killed, but as you get older you can appreciate other things about it, whereas a lot of other slasher films don't have anything else other than the violence. So once you've seen that and you're not interested, there's nothing else for you to sort of.
Weirdly, I got back into slasher movies. It was like a genre I'd never really considered. That I had watched them, but I hadn't really gone in depth and kind of researched where are the best ones. So I played a video game called Until Dawn, and it's kind of like this choice-based video game. It starts off as a slasher and becomes kind of more of a monster thing. But it's it's proper actors and everything. The guy playing Freddie Mercury and Bohemian Rhapsody, he's in it, and various other people. But it's very well done. But it kind of excited me about kind of slasher genre more. Again, I'd go out. I watched The Burning, watched The Prowler. I watched Sleepaway Camp, which is unique.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's so many. I'll be honest, Friday the 13th is the one I've probably seen the least of.
Yeah.
In regards to that, but again, it's popular in its own right.
Yeah.
But I kind of got back into it, and again, some of them are better, some of them have better stories, and there are some of them are extremely violent and. But I think it's the approach and the direction and the actors. I think there's like Halloween, kind of the magic comes together. And again, some of them are better than others, but it's I think it's still a viable genre. It's still a popular genre even until this day.
I wanted just to have a quick discussion around the slasher genre because I think it's relevant to Halloween 2. Because between Halloween being made and Halloween 2 being made, the slasher genre boom occurred. The genre kind of solidified. And I think it's pretty undeniable that affected the kind of movie that Halloween 2 is. Dan, I think, am I right in thinking that you haven't seen Halloween 2 for some time?
Not for a while. I'd probably say about maybe 15 years, I think. I do remember parts of it, but it's a bit rough.
So what we'll do is, we'll hopefully spark some
Yes,
memories.
please do talk.
We didn't deliberately invite Dan on and tell him not to watch the movie.
Don't watch those movies.
We are just blessed by his unexpected company.
He just turned up.
I'm just here, and I'm happy to be here.
But we did invite Rob on specifically asking him to talk about Halloween 2. So Rob, you have seen Halloween 2 recently, as you said.
I watched it last night, and I watched it immediately after Halloween 1. I thought I'd watch one straight after the other, and I like the idea that it's a sequel that comes immediately after the first one, doesn't it? It's literally set in the closing moments of Halloween 1.
That
starts straight away.
My first interesting point, I think about it. I mean, can we even think of another sequel which does that ever?
I don't know. Not off the top of my head.
Mutiny on the Buses? No.
Yeah. Now, was that the sequel or was that the?
No, that was
the third one. Yes.
To be honest, I really don't care.
Before we go before we go in depth about Halloween 2 specifically, because obviously in the previous episode, myself and Howard and Dan all talked about Halloween.
I did see that one.
You did see that one. You were able to comment in detail on that one. Thank
Well
you
done,
for reminding me. So I think I should just kind of say first, what did you think of Halloween on rewatching it, or what do you remember feeling about it when younger? Or what's your connection with
One
the
or
film?
two?
One.
One. As I say, I remember enjoying it, but I don't know why. I remember thinking of it, watching it last night, and I remember thinking the same thing as I thought of it the first time, which might not be a very popular view, but the cracks really show for me. There's some scenes in it which are cracking and really, really good, and I really love that bit where is it Tommy, the little boy, looks out of the window and he just sees the silhouette of Michael Myers in the house across the road, and he just see the little stick figure of Michael Myers standing there imposing, and he turns away and looks again and he's gone. I love all those shots, and the one where Laurie's walking down the street and you just see him pop up from behind the bush, the hedge, that's right, yeah. And then he ducks behind and her mate's going like, hey, he's here and he wants to ask you to the dance and stuff. But I like all of it. But it seemed, the sort of build up to it and the set up to it, it seemed very stilted in some of the dialogue. And I remember, I don't know, I'd be critical, I'm going to get crucified for this.
But I don't know opinions.
Yeah, I don't know, it just didn't quite hit the same notes for me, and that's maybe because I've seen it after all these other films. I think that's probably why. If I'd have seen it first, maybe my opinion would be different. But yeah, it just didn't seem to be quite as on it. It seemed like there was loads and loads of build-up, which wasn't particularly... Once he got going, it was great for me. I thought it was really nice, but I just thought there was so much build to it. I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about why Michael Myers was the way he was, because Donald Pleasance's character in that is a little bit, and this is something that my wife said to me last night as well, and I was thinking about it today on the way here, and I thought, I kind of agree. I kind of wanted to know a bit about why he is the way he is, and that's not really explored, because Donald Pleasance's character in these films is great, but he's a bit sort of abstract and weird. He's a bit like, he's pure evil, and you're like, oh, that's your professional medical opinion, isn't it? I've been speaking to him for 15 years and he's evil, he's just got black eyes, and you're like, right, you should be struck off. But yeah, obviously that's just because John Carpenter did everything. He scripted it and directed it and wrote it and did everything, produced it and stuff. So, but it's still really good. I just thought, I don't know, for me it just didn't quite hold up as much maybe as some of those other films.
I think that's really interesting, because we were talking about this in the previous episode, and there are two angles from which you can come to really criticise the first film. One of them is from a medical opinion. If you're interested in the psychology of it, then you're not going to be impressed.
Yeah.
So that's not for us. We kind of discussed the way that what's interesting about Michael to us is that we don't know as much about him, and that he seems in a very undefined way, kind of supernatural and things like that. And because
you're right, because of the bit where he disappears at the end, which is a great little twist. And it's just like, well, he's obviously not just an insane serial killer. There's obviously something else going on there. So but that's nice.
And the other point of view is, if you're more used to kind of the later slasher genre and the kind of more kind of linear plot, which is about the killer and he's gonna kill for what, and sometimes they have like a very defined kind of incident in the past, like in Prom Night, he was humiliated on Prom Night, and now it's Prom Night again, and
what film's that?
Terror Train.
Indeed. So again, Halloween comes across as kind of anorectic in its lack of detail.
Right.
If you look at it from that point of view, whereas I think its kind of strength is in the minimalism of it, but at the same time, I watched Halloween first and then decided I didn't really like the later kind of films. So
you're right. With the other films they do with Halloween, they then try and demystify him a little bit and add more to it, don't they? Like in the second one, they sort of mention the. Is that the one when they mention the Druids, or am I imagining? Is that later on?
They do mention the Druids. They talk about Samhain.
Samhain, that's right.
Which
because he writes
mispronounces.
I think
Solemn.
He's just written the word sword on it. What's that word up there, Doctor? Sausage. That means Halloween.
That's really interesting. Because also there are occasionally you get people who think Halloween 2 is better than Halloween, quite rarely. But I think it tends to be people who can see the cracks in Halloween, because undoubtedly Halloween 2 is a better made film. You know?
And I'm a big fan of a low budget film, as I said, and as I said with Nightmare on Elm Street, the effects look weird, and you can tell that there's a bit where he falls through the stairs, and you can see the mattress that the actor lands on and stuff like that. But
the one at the end is like a proper dummy that gets
like a blow up doll. But I'm a fan of all of that stuff. I don't mind if you can see through the cracks of the special effects. It was more about I think maybe the performances in it or something. Maybe I'm just looking at it from an actor's point of view. There's a bit specifically where I'm having to go at child actors now. God, I'm having to go at everyone today. Bastards. The bit where Tommy's got the pumpkin and he's running and all the kids are chasing after him going, he's going to get you, he's going to get you. And then they all say, it's going to get you. And then they all stop for a bit and go quiet.
Yeah.
And then one of them says his first line and they do this little bit of conversation and then they start doing it again. And then he trips over. It all just seems a bit... I don't know, just...
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to flow very well. It all just seems a bit...
I think there are kind of moments like that. There are the little moments which you would have done a retake of, but they probably didn't.
But they couldn't because of the time. Yeah,
Halloween 2, I think they probably did have more time and they did have more money. And I said in the previous podcast that I think, the bits for me, which are the weak points in Halloween, the tiny little bits, because I think it's a great movie, it's my opinion. But it's like the little bit part actors who are probably dubbed.
Right.
And kind of give these weird, I'm not really there performances.
Yeah.
Like the guy playing Jamie Lee Curtis's father at the start of the movie.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas
you never see again.
Yeah. Whereas in Halloween 2, even the tiny characters are really well acted. And I think that's just time. I think that's just they had the,
It's a brilliant, for a very low budget thing, it's a brilliant achievement to do that. And how good it is for how little money they had and how much they stretched on it. It's great.
Yeah, I think we're on agreement then.
Yeah,
so let's get to the topic of the main topic of the episode, which is obviously Halloween 2 itself.
I shot him 6 times. I shot him in the heart. The man, he's not human.
Universal Pictures presents Halloween 2. More of the night he came home.
Who is it?
There was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that wasn't even remotely human. This is some kind of a joke. I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight. You don't know what death is.
There is no place to hide. He will always find you.
What's this? It's a Celtic word. It means the Lord of the Dead.
Obviously, Halloween was a huge success. Made $47 million in the US alone on a budget of $300,000.
Wow. Yeah.
So they're like, we're definitely doing a sequel. John Carpenter tells the story that basically Erwin Yablans and Mustafa Akkad, who financed the first film, said to him, we're doing a sequel, we're definitely doing a sequel, you have to tell us that we can do it, if you don't, we'll sue you. And in between this movie, The Fog had been made, which was originally going to be, Carpenter had mentioned it to Yablans and they were going to make it together. But weirdly, then Carpenter took it to another producer, and The Fog is therefore made by everybody who did Halloween except Erwin Yablans and his money. Right. And when he found out that Carpenter had done that, he sued him. So when it came to do Halloween 2, Carpenter was probably kind of aware that, right, he definitely will sue me if we don't do it. So let's do it. And apparently John Carpenter and Deborah Hill kind of said, okay, we'll write it, but John doesn't want to direct it, we're going to find someone else. And the first person they asked was Tommy Lee Wallace, who had edited and art directed Halloween. But he wasn't interested because basically Carpenter said to him, look, they want a sequel to Halloween which appeals to the same audience as Halloween and basically does the same things and will make the same money.
Right.
And that's what you have to do. And Tommy Lee Wallace was like, I'm not very interested in that. It doesn't sound very creative.
Yeah.
So he didn't do it. And they found Rick Rosenthal I think they saw some short films he'd made at film school, and they just thought he's good.
Yeah.
So they got him in to do it. But Carpenter and Hill wrote the script. Carpenter didn't write a new score, but he basically brought his usual musical collaborator Alan Howarth into the movie and said, "Look, basically you can use all the tunes I created for Halloween, just do your own version of them." So that's why the melodies are all the same. The orchestration is different. And the crew, like Dean Cundy, the director of photography, came back. Most of the cast came back. Even the victims from the original Halloween came back to play their own corpses. Nancy Loomis and PJ Soles are in the movie. And at the same time as making Halloween 2, they were selling Halloween 1 to television and realised that Halloween 1 was not long enough because you have to have a certain amount of advert space for American television. So they need to add 11 minutes. So they had all the cast and crew there. So they shot extra scenes for Halloween 1 as well, which are on certain of the DVD releases. You can actually watch the whole film with the additional bits. Right. And I have done recently, and it's pointless. Like I've been saying about the quality, the production quality of Halloween 2, you can tell that the extra scenes have more budget. Like they're in bigger settings, but they're pointless. And they slow the pace down. They don't add anything to the film, but if you haven't seen it, it's nice to be able to watch it because there's a new scene with Jamie Lee Curtis and the other two girls. You get to see a bit more Donald Pleasance, and there is a scene which doesn't help Halloween as a film at all, but it helps Halloween 2 because it sets up the thing that's revealed in Halloween 2 that Laurie is Michael's sister, because he scratched the word sister on his cell wall in the asylum before he escaped. Things like that. So it's quite interesting to see.
But why would he do that?
Yes.
Did he scratch the word plot on the
Spoilers.
But so the way I've kind of rationalised it in my mind, it's helped me to rationalise the fact that there are now several different continuities within the Halloween franchise, because you've got this new film which ignores Halloween 2. But to me, Halloween 2 is not a sequel to Halloween, it's a sequel to the TV version of Halloween. It's like a whole separate thing, and they do work quite well together as a two-part film, I think.
I think they do. It's almost like, we were saying that they wanted to do Halloween as an anthology series, so it'd be a different story. Yeah. It's almost like Halloween is the two-part pilot, and then every film, and then Halloween 3 is the next film, and it kind of works as a sort of like a two-part story, kind of thing. And I think that's why I liked it, because it segues so well into the first,
There's a more of a definite ending to this one, isn't there?
Yeah.
To the second one, whereas the first one you've got that sort of cliffhanger of he's run off and we don't.
Well, that's it. At the end of this one, for all intents and purposes, Michael Myers dies and Donald Pleasance dies, and that's the end of that story.
Ties it off,
and let's move on to the next story, which is about a mad toy maker and whatever. So it's going to be like that's the end of it, and then of course people want to mad. But it's kind of like a really good ending. If that was the ending to it, if it hadn't been any more Michael Myers stories, that was a really good ending to that story.
Yeah, no, I agree on that level. Howard, what do you remember about how you first saw this film?
I don't know. I don't remember when I said anything. But I didn't see it that long ago. I saw Halloween 2 a long time after seeing Halloween and Halloween 3, and probably even Halloween 4, I don't know. I think I saw it about 10, 12 years ago for the first time on video. And I really liked it. I really did. It's a sequel to a slasher film. So it's not going to be that, the standards are not high, it's a sequel to a slasher, so the expectations are not that. But as a sequel to a slasher film, it's really, really good, and it's really well made. And every time I watch it, I kind of like it more.
Okay.
I kind of see that's really clever, and that was really clever, and although it's supposed to be a lot more gruesome and gory than Halloween is, I don't think it is. It's again that thing, it's what you've seen sort of compared to perhaps in 1981 when it came out, people thought, this is quite gruesome and this is quite violent.
Yeah.
When you've seen some of this stuff like Hostel and Rock Turn, all these kind of things, Saw and all that sort of thing, it seems very mild indeed, and the killings aren't that, one girl gets a syringe in a temple.
I think the most explicit one that I remember from last night was the girl getting drowned in the scalding water.
And
you see her face all blistered, and that's quite.
But policeman gets his throat cut. kind of thing. But it's not like that's, you see that bloody Midsummer Murders these days. I mean, things have moved on about what is permissible and what people expect, and sort of. So yeah, I thought as a sequel, it's really, really good, and I think it's really well done. The only kind of thing I'd say is that Jamie Lee Curtis, who we've already said is a great actress, doesn't have an awful lot to do in it, and most of the time she's just dragging herself along a hospital floor.
Correction. She's got almost nothing to do.
But she does it wonderfully. But yeah, kind of, it's weird, sort of like Donna Donald Pleasance gets top billing in Halloween. It doesn't have an awful lot to do, and it's Jamie Lee's film. Jamie Lee Curtis gets top billing in Halloween too, and yet Donald Pleasance seems to do more in that film. It's more. So it's kind of like she'd become a bigger star or whatever.
And they admitted afterwards that that's just a scripting problem. That they just kind of thought, realistically, this woman's been traumatised, she'd be taken to the hospital and she'd probably be out of action for some time. And then, like, very late into the production, they went, wait a minute, that means the lead character has nothing to do with the entire movie. And
she lies there and soliloquises in a bed, you know.
Jamie Lee Curtis was apparently kind of totally aware of that, but she was very politely going along with it. You know, she because the producers were her friends, and she didn't want to go, guys, you haven't written me anything to do. She didn't want to be a prima donna. I think that's my interpretation of it anyway. Okay.
But she was, well, the only thing you say is, why is this hospital so underpopulated?
I know.
Why is there one doctor, one matron, 4 nurses, 2 ambulance drivers, and a security guard? This is Halloween night when all sorts of things could happen. There's kids going with razor blades up their goal.
Well, the weird I mean, that's a distressing scene. The weird thing is, you feel like they could have done loads of stuff like that, and they didn't. They came up with one thing and then went, "Yeah, we'll leave it."
You're right. It would have been nice to have like a really heavily populated hospital with people running all over and sort of seeing Michael Myers sneaking through them with the mask on in an anonymous kind of hiding in plain sight kind of way. That would be nice.
It is again something that you notice.
And he's just there.
You can understand why, because he'd probably have to kill everybody in the hospital. He's just walking down the corridor, just stabbing people.
But at the same time, if it's Halloween night and the hospital is full of people celebrating Halloween night, people would have masks on and stuff. He, that would have been really interesting and would have made the movie different from the previous film, because the previous film is quite sparsely populated, and it would have changed the atmosphere.
But I was going to just say, I really do agree with you. I think it's really clever that it starts exactly where the first film ends. I think that's really good to continue the story like that. This is an actual sequel in that it goes directly from what's just happened.
It's as we talked before, it's nice to find out what happens to the character, because if you've enjoyed the first one and you want to know where Michael Myers has gone because he's run off and you're like, oh my god, he's disappeared, so it's nice to find that out. There's so many films you watch that and you're left hanging and you go, oh, I wonder what happened, and you've got to rely on crap fan fiction. But it's nice.
Oh dear. Dan, I know you haven't seen this movie for some time. What do you remember about Halloween 2?
I remember it. Weirdly enough, I remember seeing like a VHS synopsis on the back of a box. I just remember like reading it and it talking about it was like Michael Myers is back, and it made it made him seem like the hero of the piece. Right. I don't know why. The way it was written, it was like he doesn't have much of a chance, but he has a syringe. I just remember like, this is a horror
against all odds.
Yeah, he was kind of like that. And I was like,
I remember that.
Like he's Rocky Balboa.
It was like this underdog against the whole hospital.
I think I remember that exact release, because it kind of basically the back cover blurb tells you how many people he kills and what he does, and like the last sentence is something like several nurses, a patient, and even a luckless security guard fall victim to Michael in pursuit of his relentlessly violent quest.
Yeah, and it's like supporting his violent quest for murdering women.
So well done, Mike. Keep going.
Keep going. We're all behind you.
All behind you. Yeah.
You'll do it this time. But I just remember that, and it's always stuck with me. I don't know why, but it's one of those weird things. Can't remember the pin to my credit card, but I can remember the back of a VHS from 15 years ago.
All right, I've got a credit card.
But I remember I remembered enjoying it. I remember thinking, it's pretty good, and again, I like the literally continuous. I think that's very clever, and it was. I know, obviously, there's a bit people have aged and the hair's different.
Yeah, that is slightly odd, isn't it? So it's just like this has happened 10 seconds later, and everyone's just like, how many years is it in between?
3
years.
So,
All right, so
yeah,
it's not that much, but there is a visible difference.
Yeah, I do remember that as well, but. I'll be honest, I remember enjoying it. I remember thinking, it's pretty good, and you can tell that the quality's gone up. You can tell the budget has gone up.
Yeah, well, a car explodes. Like
That's the point for me when you think this is a different film.
Yeah.
when the guy gets the 17-year-old fella, I forget his name, he gets run over by, but there's no
Ben Tramer.
Yeah, Ben Tramer, that's the one. Yeah, he gets hit by a car and then blown up into a side of a van, doesn't he? And it just explodes and there's flames and it's burning flames. Oh Christ, you couldn't have seen this in the first one. That's the whole budget blown on that one effect.
I'll be honest. The only scene I remember, being an adolescent young boy, is I think it's a jacuzzi or a bath tub, the hot tub, and the
in a hospital.
Yeah, in a hospital, and the nurse disrobes, and she has a very good body, and I just remember that's what I remember of mostly the film. And like you say, I think she gets boiled or something.
That's the wonderfully named Pamela Susan Shoop.
Oh, yes.
That's right, because I saw her name on the credits and I thought it was 2 people. I thought it was like a rapper in the film, like when was it? What's the name of the guy that was in Halloween Resurrection?
It was
there was a rapper
Busta
in that.
Rhymes.
Busta Rhymes, that's
Busta
right.
Rhymes.
Yes.
And I thought it was like what was her name? Halloween Susan.
Pamela Susan.
Pamela Susan and Shoot.
No,
Who's Shoot?
because her name is so long, it has to be on 2 lines.
That's what I remember thinking.
Right.
Is it Pamela Susan and Shoot?
But that's unfortunately that's mostly what I remember.
Well, there's that bit in that where
Chesty and
the little lines in that is where they're really like creepy ambulance guys in the hot tub with her, and she says, "Get out and turn the temperature down" or something. And he goes, "But it's cold out there," and she's like, "It's about to get cold in here."
That is horror movie dialogue, and it's cheesy.
The ironic thing is that it really was absolutely freezing in that hot tub because they couldn't connect it.
Couldn't afford.
Could they not?
And
so someone just said, "Tube blowing."
Although I've said the movie had more budget and more time, they didn't have enough time to wait to get the water heated up. The director just said, "Look, just do it." And they just had to both pretend to be warm.
Oh, it's boiling.
I'm so hot.
Yeah.
My encounter with it was back in the mid-90s on VHS. I just watched Halloween. I didn't want to watch the sequels, but I was intrigued enough to, especially when I heard that Halloween 2 had all the same cast, it had all the same crew, it was set on the same night, which was intriguing, and it was just like, what happens next? And it just looked so promising, and I did eventually track a copy of it down and watched it. I had a double bill, there was a double bill VHS with both of the first 2 films on.
Right.
And the first one was, because it was obviously the older film and it had been transferred to video quite primitively, and it was a widescreen film, but they'd squashed it to fit. It wasn't pan and scan, it was just squashed, so everybody looked like pinheads, or coneheads. But the sequel didn't have that, so it looked a bit better. My first impression of it was, ooh, the music's bad.
Yeah, I remember that. It's the same tune, but like done on sort of like a synthesized something or other, isn't it?
Yeah, because apparently, because it's obviously John Carpenter's still involved, but he didn't really do the score for the second one. He said
he wrote the second one, didn't he? I'm sure
he wrote the second film.
He wrote it.
Yeah, the music. I didn't really like what they've done with the music, and then the credits. Because the credits to Halloween and Halloween 2 are basically the same concept. But the first one's really effective because it's so short. It's like just a spooky image of this pumpkin and then you're into the movie. The sequel, it goes on for ages. And the reason it goes on for ages is because the cast is so huge. And I just remember seeing all these names up thinking, they're all going to die, aren't they? Every single one of them is going to die.
Actually,
even Shoop.
Hunter von Leer makes it to the end of the film.
Oh no, that's true, Hunter von Leer. No, that's true.
I think my favourite little fact that I found out about it, which I didn't know, was that the guy who played the other ambulance driver, and I forgot his name, just gone out of my head now.
Lance Guest?
Lance Guest, that's right. I was thinking I've seen that name somewhere before, and it's from Jaws the Revenger,
Yes.
which is my second favourite Jaws film.
And mine.
I really like Jaws the
And
Revenger.
it's not mine.
Yeah. Again from nostalgia.
And again, I haven't seen it.
But he plays like Michael Brody in that, and I think I've never seen his face somewhere. And he's got this weird acting tick. I'm sure he's a nice bunny. He's got this weird acting tick of like acting with his mouth open.
Yeah.
Have you seen the scene when he's like? There's a scene where he's looking around like, Jamie Lee Curtis's room, and he's got his mouth wide open. And he's sort of glaring around like a goldfish, just looking around, and he does it in Jaws the Revenger as well.
I think he's a likeable presence, and
Yeah.
he's also the star of The Last Starfighter. If you
Okay.
Oh,
right.
yes. Now I remember him, yeah.
Right.
I wish could have done more. But
It's interesting about Lance Guest because you kind of think at the beginning that he's going to be the hero.
Yeah.
He's going to
He's set up for it, isn't he?
He looks like he's quite shy and quite nice. The other guy, the other ambulance driver, is just
He's fodder, isn't he?
Yeah. But he's a nice guy, so he's going to work things out. He's going to be the hero. And then he ends up sticking a load of blood knocking his head and just, that's it.
That's hilarious, that scene when he goes in and he sees the nurse that's been bled out on the shoulder and he's like, oh no, there's a blood. And you think, you're right, you think he's going to be the hero of the thing, and then he sees it just like, oh, I better run off. And he slips on the blood and knocks himself unconscious. And it's just like, mouth open. And he's just, that's it. And then doesn't he come back to the car?
He goes in the car and then just falls forward and it's the
That's right, because he's all concussed.
Yeah. But I think you're supposed to think he's the hero, and then it turns out he isn't. And I think that's a nice bit of misdirection, a nice bit of sort of like kind of. And Jamie Lee's on her own, so you've got to sort it out herself.
I almost agree. I think because the middle of the film is a bit weird in terms of the way it moves from all the new characters who've kind of occupied the first half of the film, and it's been about them. But then they kind of realise for the ending, you really want to see the characters from the first film. So it's all Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis, and he has to kind of transition from the hospital characters to just those two again, essentially. And it's kind of quite weirdly done. There's like 10 minutes in the middle of the film where he's going like, something's weird in the hospital. Everybody's gone. I don't know what's going on. We should call the police. And it's like it's very strange, diffuse tension because everybody's sort of aware that something's wrong, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But the audience does. So I found when I rewatched it again recently, that was the only bit I found it an enjoyable film. But that was the only bit, the kind of 10-15 minutes in the middle, where they're wandering around and like Laurie's in bed.
For a long time.
but then she gets this impulse to get out of bed as if she's going to go hiding. But where else is she going to go that's better? And she goes and crouches by a door.
That's right.
It's like, what does she think she's hiding from? And it's like they set up this scene in a minute where Michael Myers comes in her room and stabs the bed, thinks she's in the bed. But it's like, how did she know he was coming? It's just like the whole thing is kind of too vaguely done.
It seemed like to me that there was a bit cut out because I agree with you that it seems peculiar that she gets out of bed for no reason, and I thought that maybe there was a scene cut out where she hears it on the radio that Michael Myers' body hasn't been found, or or she sees it on the TV that we thought we'd found him or we thought we'd killed him with a van, but sorry, we messed up. Signed Haddonfield Police. And then she hears that, and then that thing, he must be coming here, so then she hides, but I don't know if there was or not.
I've never heard any hint that there was actually, so that's a strange one. But it does feel like there should be. And it just...
Maybe she's going to look and see if there's anybody else in this hospital.
Yeah.
Any other patients or anybody.
Where's
everybody, somebody to talk to, just because she's on her own. It's like,
take her to
there's
Haddonfield.
7 people in this massive hospital.
Take her to Haddonfield Haunted Hospital.
I mean, I do enjoy the film. I think what it does is it narrows the focus of the first film, because so much of what appealed to us about the first film was the things you don't know. You don't really know what he's about. You don't know why he's even following them, what he's going to do. Even when he does start to kill them, there's a question of what is his end goal with this? Because I think the nearest thing you get is the idea that maybe in some way he's trying to recreate the killing of his sister, and he stages her grave on the bed with Nancy Loomis's corpse. But at the same time, why is he doing that? And then when Jamie Lee Curtis finds it, he's set up booby traps with all the corpses to scare her. So did he know that she was going to find it? Obviously he did, or he intended someone to find it. You never quite get it.
No, I think that's one of my issues with it as well, because it's sort of like those bits seem purely for the cinema of it as opposed to the plot of it, because they look great, that shot of him coming in and seeing her lying on the bed and with the grave, and then with the guy flaps back and forth in the doorway. It looks great, but you're like, why and how? And when's he had time?
Yeah. When we talk about Halloween, we were saying, and other people have said, that Michael Myers is actually playing tricks on these people. It's Halloween night, and he's playing his rather bizarre, twisted version of Halloween games with these people. So that's why he does it. That's why he stands there with the sheet over his head and the glasses when he's about to kill her. He doesn't just run in and kill her. He stands there as if he's playing some kind of joke with her. Yeah. And that's what he's doing. And in a way, yes, the one thing I kind of object to or don't like in Halloween 2 is the fact that they give him a definite purpose. He's trying to kill his sister. Laurie is his sister, he's trying to get her. And I just think it would be better if it's just, there was no reason really why. It's just that he failed to kill her before, so he's going to kill her now, just because, he's a bit upset that he didn't do it. And that's why he's followed her to the whole thing about making her his sister gives him a definite human kind of emotional reason to do something, where he's sort of...
With that in mind, I think it would have been nice, if that is definitely the reason why, I think it would have been nice for some of that to have come through in Donald Pleasance's or Dr. Loomis's analysis of that, because I think in 15 years of analysing this guy, something of that must have come across.
Yeah.
Do you know? I think it might have been nice for that to have, he's something in his analysis of him would have been.
Well, in the first
because he says he doesn't say anything, he's cold, he just stares at the wall, and it's like, is all that time? Is he just thinking about how?
Well, in the first film, Laurie is not his sister.
No,
that's something that was added for the.
So if it had been an idea from the start, then they would have been able to feed it in. Yeah. Whereas because they'd only come up with this as the sequel, Dr. Loomis doesn't even know that he's got a sister.
No, sorry, I'm confused. I didn't mean the sister thing. Sorry, I meant the playing tricks on people. Sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah. Like it would have been if at some point in the first, because he just says, I've spent 7 years trying to get through to him, and then however many years trying to keep him locked away because he's pure evil. At some point.
What Donald Pleasance says, he's just a blank, emotionless.
Yeah.
And yet he's not. If he's
exactly.
If he's blank, emotionless, he wouldn't stand there with a sheet over his head.
Exactly. He wouldn't have that weird sense of humour of setting up traps and stuff.
We said it in the previous episode that we thought, and I particularly thought that there's a childlike quality to him. Right. He's been locked up for so long. He was a child, and then he plays his game with his sister. And then there's a playfulness, like when he stabs Bob against the wall and he's like tilts his head. He's like he's inspecting her. He's playing. He's like, "Did you enjoy that game?" And then he dresses up and puts the fucking glasses on. He like cuts holes in the sheet and puts the glasses on. Because it's a game. That's what I think as well. Yeah, and that's what it comes across as.
And that gets lost in the sequel.
Yeah,
he just becomes a robotic, invincible serial killer, which is what he's in all the others, and I think you've lost something. You've lost that sort of playfulness. He moves robotically in the sequel. He's played by a different actor in the sequel.
Is he? Okay.
And apparently, in one of the making ofs, Dick Warlock, the stuntman who played him in the sequel, says that many years later he heard an interview with Deborah Hill, the producer, where she said, "Unfortunately, Dick Warlock just never kind of got the movement style that the first guy did." And Dick Warlock said, "She never said anything to me. Why didn't she take me on time?"
Yeah, that's annoying, isn't it? From an acting perspective, it's like, why doesn't the director, if it's not quite working, the director sort of maybe could have given them that feedback.
Even just once, even just one note.
Yeah. Or maybe they did and they just didn't take it on board. Just that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. They never told me.
Yeah. Like you always think, like people like when Ray Winston does that accent in The Departed, you just think, did the director take it aside at this point and just go, can you at least try and sound as if you're from not from the East End of London? But yeah, sorry, that's just an aside.
Actually, that's the point when you think about it. Donald Pleasence says he's evil. He's just, and he's not. If he's been sitting in an institution for 50 years just staring at the wall, that's not evil.
I agree.
If he attacked every institution and everything, then that's not evil.
It's an unusual perspective on that. Isn't it? It's just like how does he know he's pure evil if all he's done is stare at the wall and not move or say anything? It's like, well, does
sense. Maybe it's a sense.
Well, it's not.
Which is why it's that odd, like, it's pure evil in those eyes. Yes.
But I think it's interesting that, therefore, who's to say Dr. Loomis is actually right? The guy is clearly dangerous.
He's awful.
And he might be genuinely supernatural.
Well, there's that.
But evil is a different thing.
Yeah. Well, evil's it's whether even that exists. But I think it's in terms of like a horror film, the concept of evil is a nice thing to put in there, and it's nice to sort of say a person is evil. So it gives you that sort of sense.
He's the devil.
This is a person this is definitely the baddie. There's nothing to be misunderstood about this.
The guy with the big knife. That's the villain.
Yeah, he's the baddie.
And I think that actually adds to the suspense in that you never really understand what Michael's aim is or what he's going to do. But there's this character, Dr. Loomis, who's constantly telling you this guy is evil. He's an undefinable terror. I mean, you can't quite put that together into something meaningful. But I think that the atmosphere it builds is great. I think.
Atmospherically.
I don't know if maybe perhaps the idea of Michael and his presence and his energy has somehow affected Dr. Loomis. He's been, because he's mad. He's clearly mad himself. It's a different kind of madness, but he's clearly become obsessed and focused purely, he's focused on this pure evil.
Yeah, the first time you see him in that car and he's just having a go at that nurse and she's saying,
she's like, that's your medical opinion. He's like, in fact it is.
Yes.
It is definitely evil.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, doctor, whatever you say.
That's what I wrote on his prescription.
Just gone on a kind of tangent when that nurse character, when she returns towards the end of Halloween 2, I think it's really nice that they brought her back. But also, what's really weird is because it's set like just a few hours later, there's kind of not a way to explain who she is. Well, for the audience, the previous movie was 3 years ago. They don't, and when she walks in, Donald Pleasence just goes, "Oh, it's you."
I didn't recognise you. The last time I saw you, you'd been dragged out of a car by your knickers. I'm not quite.
You lost your hat.
I didn't see your face. Yeah.
But no, so I mean, I kind of broadly agree with what you're saying, Howard, about the effectiveness of the movie, because I think when it settles down, as I say, there is that kind of period in the middle where the tension doesn't really work because it doesn't really seem to. It's like you say, Rob. It's a bit lacking in structure, which allows you to know what's going on.
Yeah.
But when it's towards the end of the film, where it's actually settled down into Michael Myers is a killer. He wants to kill Laurie because he's his sister. He will kill anyone else who's in his way, and it becomes basically a chase movie, like a kind of proto with the Terminator, really.
There's lots of slow marching down corridors, isn't there?
And I think that's all kind of effective. And it is quite enjoyable. What it loses for me is I like not just the suspense and the mystery from the original, the kind of supernatural edge, but I kind of, these days I've come to think of Halloween as basically being a ghost story. And that Michael Myers is a ghost. It's weird because he's a ghost who's not dead, but he acts like a ghost. He kind of appears and disappears. There's the key scene where he kills Nancy Loomis in the car. Well, she's forgotten the keys, so she can't unlock it. She goes to get the keys, she comes back, and the door's open. And she gets in, and then she realises that the door was open, and then it's like, how did he get in the car? Without, did he force the lock? Why didn't she notice that? Or
that's strange. But the reason she knows he's there is there's someone in there because the windscreen's fogged up, so he must be breathing.
Well, that's true. Well, no, his breathing is a big thing about it in the movie.
Oh yeah, because it's all through the mask.
So, like I say, I don't think he's dead, but I think he's some kind of ghost. I don't know what he is, and that's what I find quite interesting.
It's filmed like a ghost story, actually.
Yeah.
It's filmed where he suddenly appears or whatever,
Yeah.
like an ethereal
And he's
being
gone, yeah.
in his white face. It kind of, I suppose, because it looks a bit like a ghost story. More
It's-
than a slasher
It is.
film.
I say it's filmed more like a ghost story.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe
in
it
terms of
is.
like the number of deaths in it, it's not. It doesn't match up to like a slasher film, does it?
No.
Because there's like 3
No.
teenagers killed in it or something.
Yeah.
And then the guy that he gets his costume off, the guy in the van at the beginning. And
Which I was thinking, nobody knows about him.
Yeah,
They probably still lying there. Nobody's obviously-
I love that bit where
Seen
Donald
him.
Pleasance's on the phone just going like, if you don't, it's your funeral. And he hangs up and then he's like, oh, hold on, there's a van there with a lot of... Let me just investigate this small alleyway where this body's been hidden in a fence.
I love the low budget economy. We need a scene where he phones ahead with a warning, and we need a scene where he finds celebrities. Why aren't they in exactly the same place?
There's only one lay-by on the way to Haddonfield.
I think one of the more interesting things this plays with is a lot of films. The idea is you don't show the monster too early. You don't show the threat or the problem. Jaws or what have you. You don't see it, but in this you see him almost immediately. In the car.
Halloween 2.
No, sorry. I was going back to Halloween 1. I was thinking like the whole idea of him, him he's just constantly appearing, constantly just popping his head.
He jumps on the car like a spider, doesn't he? He just
Yeah.
climbs up the back.
Smashes it.
What I think is quite clever, not to be talking too much about Halloween,
No, sorry.
but throughout the movie, although you're right, you do see him early on, but you only see him from a distance or in different
true.
ways. Like even when he's got the mask on, you don't actually get a close look at the mask until after he's killed PJ Soul. And I think that's the real chilling moment of that scene. Not when he kills her, but when he looks up with the mask and he puts the phone to his ear, and just that slightly befuddled head movement. And that just gives me absolute.
There's
chill.
all those things that just add to it, and just what is he thinking? Why?
What I'd like to do is discuss for a little bit kind of the way other slasher movies had come out since Halloween and before Halloween 2 and how that might have affected the movie. I looked in the great book by Kim Newman called Nightmare Movies, published originally in 1983 I think, but revised several times over the years, and it's essentially my Bible. And he's very good at knowing the great depth of kind of obscure lists of movies that are produced by genre. So following Halloween, slasher movies kind of came in, and we had since 1978. In 1980, Friday the 13th, Prom Night, Terror Train, and then in 1981, Friday the 13th Part 2, which and I think this is relevant because Halloween 2 didn't come out till October, so all these movies came out before Halloween 2,
Right.
and some of them might have been seen by the makers. In 1981 you also had My Bloody Valentine, Happy Birthday to Me, Mother's Day, Hell Night, Graduation Day, Pieces, Prowler, The Slayer, X-Ray. And there'd also been a kind of mildly successful popular movie in 78, so at the same time as Halloween 1, but much more graphic, called The Toolbox Murders.
Okay.
Is that Toby Hooper? I think it might.
It might have been, I'm not sure.
No, it's not.
No, that's
It's not,
something
no.
else. Sorry.
You might be thinking of Eaten Alive with Crocodile.
Possibly.
It's not the whole
No,
title.
not there.
It's not Eaten Alive with the
Eaten
Crocodile.
Alive
It's
with
not the
the
title.
Brackets. Eat your live, feet, crocodile.
Maybe produced it. Maybe.
I kind of think the key movie there is Friday the 13th Part 2, which came out in June 1981, because the slogan for that movie, or the tagline, was "The body count continues."
Yeah.
So that's kind of the atmosphere.
Well, Friday the 13th Part 2, they didn't really have Jason in the first one, did they? It was the mother.
No.
So then he became a Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was,
character.
and it was sort of. It wasn't like he is in the later ones. In the later ones, I think they sort of took a lot from the Michael Myers big, hulking, strong,
unkillable.
with a mask on. But in 2, he was quite wiry and dangerous. He was like a wild man of the forest. They set up in Friday the 13th Part 2 because he's got like a bag on his head. And you see one of his eyes sort of peeking out like that, and he carries a pitchfork and he wears like overalls and he lives in the woods. And they set up that maybe he did, and it's nonsense because he did drown in the first one, but they're like maybe he didn't drown, maybe he lives in the forest now, and you're like, of course he does. for this film. But yeah, he's quite different. But he is anonymous killer and is, as you say, slightly unkillable because he gets hit and then he falls over and then he gets up again and stuff. But the difference between that and you can see similarities in Halloween 2 and Friday the 13th Part 2 in the sense of like there is more bodies and there is more killing and there is more prosthetic special effects and people being pinned to walls and different things like that. So you can definitely see the effect that one's had on the other.
Okay.
I think.
Well, certainly this was something that Carpenter was aware of.
Right.
Because apparently when they started making Halloween 2, their mission was to recreate the first film as much as possible.
Okay.
And the director, Rick Rosenthal, was instructed to kind of imitate the style and visualisation of the movie and the level of violence and all that. But then Carpenter became aware of all these other slasher movies and how successful they were, and he became concerned that we've got to up the ante to compete with these. So he himself went to shoot extra scenes of violence to put into Halloween 2. So all the gruesome bits in Halloween 2, or not all of them, but probably most of them, the syringe going into the eye, the bit at the start that has no connection to the rest of the film at all, which is the kind of girl on the phone. Yeah, that whole sequence was completely directed by Carpenter and then inserted. And they just shot a load of extra stuff, basically to appease that crowd. I think Kim Newman on the DVD commentary said maybe Rick Rosenthal had done his job too well. He'd imitated...
This is the same film.
Yes, he'd done exactly what he was asked, and the producers kind of realised that they had to change with the times.
I like that little scene where Michael Myers breaks into that house to pick up the knife because it sort of, as you say, emulates the first one because it's from his first person perspective, and there's loads of that in the first one, isn't there, which is nice. You don't see that very often in the film these days. I do like that. But yeah, he comes into that. There's the elderly couple, doesn't it? And she's like making this, and she's like, "Hey, you want mayonnaise on your sandwich?" And she's doing that, and the old fella's asleep in front of whatever film.
And that's the old lady from Jewel.
Yes, it is. It's Lucille Benson, who was the snake lady.
Wow. There's always old 50s films on the telly in these films as well. In 1 and 2, there's all, they're watching The Thing from Another World and they're watching Forbidden Planet, and in this one they were, what's the other one? What's the one they're watching in 2?
Night of the Living Dead.
That's right, yeah. Coming to Get Your Barber, that's right. And there's just that first person bit where she's making the butty and she goes into the other room to speak to him and he's like snoring, dozing away, and you just see Michael Myers' hand picking up the knife and then he leaves with it, but you see him in the back. He doesn't kill them. He stands in the background and watches the film with them for a bit. And you see her watching it. She's getting to him, just like, "What are you doing asleep?" And he's asleep. And you see Michael Myers in the kitchen, just like leaning over, going like, "Oh, wonder what's on." And then he disappears, as you say. That's the only bit he seems a bit more playful in the film. Yeah. And then he disappears, and she turns around and sees the blood on the board and the knife gone, and she's just like, "Oh, I wonder who that was."
But you say John Carpenter added more gore, but those scenes aren't that gory.
No.
So what you really see is Michael Myers going like that, and just blood going in the face. You do not see all guts coming out.
But you don't see that in the first one, I recall. You don't see blood splashing on.
No, but it's still not that.
No, it's not that.
It's horrifying.
But I mean, more. It's probably John Carter's version of. Yeah.
That's his idea of gore.
That's enough. That's enough.
Yeah.
No, his idea of gore is The Thing.
But that's a different kind of.
But you definitely see blood. I think that's.
But you see more blood, yes. But what I'm saying is, it's not as violent as some
gratuitous
other slasher films which were around at the same time. My Bloody Valentine, which is very. I've seen most of it. It's incredibly gruesome.
I mean,
I do like My Bloody Valentine being said in. I like it in a Yorkshire accent. Just Bloody Valentine. Going round again.
I mean, I haven't seen those films, so maybe actually Carpenter was trying to keep up with the trend and failing. Maybe he was already not graphic enough.
Well, no, yes and no. That's his idea of gore.
Yeah.
He's not really a gore director, wasn't at that time. That's
maybe it's just that he didn't quite have the practical effects, because when you think of Friday the 13th, it had Tom Savini, who was very good at that.
Yeah.
That bit where Kevin Bacon is lying on the bed and he gets the arrow put through his neck. Literally Tom Savini was underneath that with a bag of blood going squirt, 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 and ended up going all over him. So that's maybe he just didn't have. I don't know who did the practical effects for it, so I've no idea. But maybe the guy just didn't have as much experience.
No,
didn't have it. I don't know.
Didn't have as much ingenuity.
As Tom Savini. Maybe.
We did discuss the fact that, obviously it's a fairly unique sequel in the sense of carrying on straight from the end of the previous movie, and the continuity is very strong with basically all the key cast coming back, and most of the key crew, and it kind of looks the same. Do we like that? And does that make it work as a movie on its own? Can you imagine watching Halloween 2 just as... Because I've never watched it on its own. Every time I've watched it,
it's a carry on.
That's true.
Like
I wish it was a carry on. Carry on Halloween.
St. James is Michael Myers.
Yeah.
I kind of think it...
Matron.
Well, I hadn't seen Halloween for a while when I watched Halloween 2, and you can... It is a sequel. When you watch it, it is a sequel. So you know it's a sequel, so you know stuff's happened before. As a film, I do think it works on its own terms, simply because it is quite well written. It's got Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis, who are both great, and other good actors in it, and Hunter von Leer. It's just the best name.
I just hear Lars von Trier.
Which character?
He plays the deputy sheriff.
He doesn't do very much.
Oh,
he gets quite
the big
prominent
tall
billing,
He-Man looking bloke. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of
The one that does that brilliant bit of acting when he's telling the sheriff about his daughter, and he does this with his hand. And he sort of just, it's Annie!
That became me and my nephew were watching it the first time. That became, and one of them was Annie!
How would you... That's how you break the news to you that your friends don't...
In front of everyone else. You wouldn't just take him to the side and just go, we think we found your daughter. You just go to everyone, one of them was Annie!
You're a cop, you should be used to telling people.
But he sort of sets the scene as well. We found a load of corpses and one of them...
like his initial reaction was, a lot of corpses, oh no.
Who were the others then?
I don't care about them.
And the other was your wife.
I think in a way my only problem with the movie is I think that the script problems in terms of some of the structure and the fact that it doesn't really attempt to recreate that kind of the mystery elements that we've discussed. But if you get that as one side, it's okay, but I still feel slightly disappointed by the fact that they kind of get all these characters back but then don't necessarily do that much that's interesting with them. Generally, Curtis doesn't get much to do. Donald Pleasence, all his stuff is great, and I love all his new speeches, and it's probably his shining moment, really. And he gets to go, "What do you fellas do? Fire a warning shot, right?"
Yeah, through the window, yeah.
And all that.
Right, yeah.
He's always great, though. Donald Pleasence is a great actor.
But I do find it disappointing that you've got like the first 15 minutes of the movie where Charles Cyphers is still in it. And then they can't think... Obviously, they have to deal with the fact that his daughter was a character in the first film. She's died. He's going to find that out at some point. But all that's happening is they tell him, and then he goes home. Why can't... Wouldn't it have been great if he'd turned up later in the movie and he was vengeance crazy?
Well, that would work.
And he comes out with he comes and gets Michael Myers at the end. What I really enjoy is the little interactions that Donald Pleasence has with him when he's I think some of them's in the first one as well, because it's hard sometimes to remember which bit happened in the first. When he's turning to say, "Damn you for letting him go," and Donald Pleasence every time responds to him in a really low key, "I didn't let him go." Every other person who has a go about something, he kicks off at them and he's like, "Go, move, go and do this," and he's giving orders to everyone. And every time this copper says, "Damn you for letting him go," he's like, "I didn't. I gave orders for him to be locked up." But he's dead understated. He's just like, "I'm not having this argument with you. I've already told you."
Actually, because I hate that moment in Halloween 2 where they told the sheriff that his daughter's been killed, and he says to Loomis,
that's the bit I'm thinking of.
Yeah, he says, "Damn you, you let him out!"
Yeah.
And Loomis's response is, "I didn't let him out. I gave orders for him to be restrained." I've always kind of hated that on the grounds of being lame writing, but you're right. Performatively, it's wonderful.
He's just very understated. He's like, "I didn't. I gave orders." He's sick of saying this to people. He's like, "I've told," because he says that a lot in the films, doesn't he? He says, "I've told so many people not to let this guy out," and I don't think it's ever cleared up in the first one. You might know why the escape happened or how it happened.
Well, no. Again, it's one of those things you don't quite know.
Yeah.
Which suggests, is he supernatural or what powers has he got?
One of the extra scenes in the TV version is in it's like the next morning at the hospital, and Loomis is talking to a nurse, and she gives him a bit more detail about someone. One of the security guards was drunk or went off his post for a bit, and it just and left a door open, and it. There's a bit more detail, but it's still pretty vague.
All right, so they do what you said before. They sort of get rid of the supernatural elements and just go, no, it was just a drunk policeman.
Well, they are clear of the fact that Loomis obviously wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, he clearly is because he's driving to the hospital. So that's
yeah.
obvious. But
it's almost like he's like the way he's speaking to the policeman. It's almost like he respects him more than everybody else, and that he's friendly to him, and he feels bad, you know,
because he's trying to get him on side.
Exactly, and that's a more humanising aspect to Loomis instead of being he's evil, he's bad, kill him, lock him up,
True,
all this sort of stuff, you know. So I think that's kind of a sweet moment.
Because hasn't he said in a few times, it might have been in the first one again, where he says. He gives him a big speech about how he said, all I've heard from you is fancy words. And then he said, look, he's evil, he's done this, done that, 15 years and black eyes, and then he goes, more fancy words. Maybe at that point he just goes, oh right, bollocks, forget it.
Not really that fancy.
Yeah. Dark eyes.
Blackest eyes, darkest eyes.
I know you're a local copper, but
you're so fancy, you.
With your fancy town ways. Yeah, I love that bit where he just goes, look, this is Haddonfield, we've got families lined up here. I feel like saying that's every town, isn't it? What other town has got no families?
Not lined up, just off locations.
Yeah, we've got a random streets here. We've got families in swamps.
So Rob, how did you find, obviously you watched both movies, but specifically how did you find Halloween 2 as a film, and did you enjoy watching it?
I did enjoy it for the reason that it was quite late last night, and it was almost atmospheric for watching a horror film. And as I just watched the first one, so I got my head into the world and everything like that. And the second one, I'd forgotten most about it except that it was set in hospital. So I did enjoy it. I thought it was a nice thing to watch, and I got a bit weirded out by the weird dream sequence in the middle where it flashes back and some hanging at washing, and he says something like, "We're not your real parents," and then.
That's another bit that's frustrating because they clearly could have done much more with it, but it's just a really brief sequence, and the dialogue is something like, "I told you, I'm not your mother." That's
right.
That's it.
Yeah. But it's set up in it's such a fake domestic bit, like she's literally hanging washing out and the daughter's standing there, like she's come outside to the garden. It's like, this is what we do as a family. By the way, are you my mother? No, I'm not. But I did enjoy it. I agree with you. It's an enjoyable film for what it is, and it's nice that it follows straight on. And I like that it does what a sequel should do for me, is that it adds a bit more to the original and gives you a bit more. It's not just a complete rehash, I don't think. It does add a bit more. It adds a bit more to the plot. It says, it's the sister now, and it gives him a bit more to do and gives the other characters a bit more to do, I think, and expands on the mythology of it a little bit more. And it's obviously got a bigger budget with the car explosion and everything. So, I think it's nice that it builds on it in that way.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Rob, for watching it again. And,
that's all right.
Reevaluating. I like the film. I think, in a weird way, I kind of agree and disagree with what you're saying, because I think it doesn't add more to the original. It takes things away, but in such a way that is fine for a kind of sequel, which is more focused. Because the sequel is certainly the last half hour of the sequel is very specifically Michael wants to kill Laurie. That's his thing, and he's chasing her, and people are trying to save her, and and it's quite exciting and suspenseful, and well done. And I think it's fine to do that for one movie, and as a firm ending. And I think John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were aware that they wanted to end the Michael Myers story there. They may have known that the producers would want more sequels after that, but they were, I think. They probably decided already, and certainly the next film in the series supports this, that they thought, we'll do more sequels, but they're going to be totally different. We're going to do what we want with those. So, kind of for one focused sequel, it works well. I think the things that this movie does to the story in terms of narrowing it down to be about Michael Myers and his family, and things like that, how fertile or not fertile they are for further exploration, further movies, is debatable. And we will have that debate when we talk about later films in the series. But for now, I think it works okay.
On the commentary, Kim Newman, I think, or the other guy, who says, they are criticising a bit and say, Yeah, I know it sounds like we're knocking this film a bit, but believe me, it is so much better than most of the slasher films, and certainly any of the slasher sequels.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at least it's a good, decent, well-crafted film. That you can
I mean, I'll tell you what. When I first watched it, I was disappointed. It was not what I was hoping for, but I sort of enjoyed it. But I thought it was kind of like a 2-star film, 2.5 stars. I think I gave it in my little review almanac that I was writing as a teenager. I remember that specifically, and I think, to be honest, 2.5 was generous on my part. I knew it wasn't really 2.5, but then I went and watched. Spoilers for later podcasts, but I went and watched all the later Halloween sequels and pretty much hated them, and then came back to watch Halloween 2 again and realised how bloody good it was and how well made it is. And I mean, in terms of the later sequels, I'm rewatching them at the moment, I want to keep an open mind with them and kind of be less bitter about them than I might have been as an impatient teenager. But I stand by that Halloween 2 is really well made, and you can clearly see that, and I appreciate that. And I did watch it in a double bill with Halloween 1 the other week. I think it worked well. It was an enjoyable time, and actually I watched them in the middle of the night. I expected to be knackered and sleepy by the end of Halloween 2, but I enjoyed the film sufficiently that I was still wide awake, and I stuck Halloween H2O on as a kind of conclusion to the trilogy. And I recommend that way of watching them. I think that works.
That's not bad actually.
Can I just say there is a brilliant use of the song Mr. Sandman, which comes at the end by the Cordettes.
That's right, yeah.
Mr. Sandman.
That's true.
Bring me a dream.
That's a really nice touch, actually. Yeah.
Because it's so incongruous coming at the end of the...
And I've read bits of the script, and
I've forgotten about that.
That is in the script. They specify in the script that song is used, and they also describe the title sequence in the script. I think that's really interesting.
I wonder why they chose that song.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, in the script it even specifies the Cordettes version, because there was another male voice version of it.
I suppose because that
there's
version is quite light and
a female version and a male version. Right. So it's make her. Give him 2 lips. So it can be sung by either gender. And again, the song is like "Bring Me a Dream." So is it saying, is this all a dream? Was Michael Myers a dream? Or are we reading too much into it? It's just like a nice song.
Has Laurie gone mad?
It's an interesting touch, and it's one of the things that Halloween H2O picks up on. They use that song again, which I think is really nice. Yeah, I think having watched them all as a trilogy, H2O I think stands as an excellent sequel to Halloween 2. I mean, you could argue that it's a better film than Halloween 2. We'll get into that, and I'm not.
I mean, it's much wetter, isn't it?
It is much wetter. It's very
Water thing to say.
So, as a final note, so Dan, you're the one among us who's not seen the film in a long time. Do you feel like watching it again?
I would, I definitely would. And I remember, again, I have vague recollections of enjoying it. But yeah, I think I will go and revisit that.
Smashing. Well, there we go. That's excellent.
I just remember, I was trying to think of like anything that kind of, like dovetailed into a sequel. I think Hellraiser might do that. I think that's set on the same night.
Oh, it is very close.
Yeah,
I
think it's.
Right.
I feel like it's either maybe the next day or possibly because she ends up in hospital after the initial film.
Weirdly, Hellraiser is set on the next night, but in a different country.
That's correct.
Because Hellraiser 1 is London, Hellraiser 2 is at the same house and the same characters, but it's America. They've just transplanted.
I thought it was so bizarre as well, the first one. It's so American yet English.
Well, I think other people have kind of defended it to me in the grounds that basically they wanted the first one to be set in America, but they didn't have the budget to make a London set shot film look and sound like America. But for the sequel they did, because I think it was still made in England.
Yeah, I think so.
But they could get all the American accented character actors in and stuff like that for the sequel. But yeah,
I think Revenge of Frankenstein starts by Curse of Frankenstein.
Really?
It does. Excellent.
That's good.
But it is a rare thing.
Yeah, it's rare. It's definitely rare. And probably Halloween will start with that.
Yeah.
I think that's
good. No, that's good. I'm looking at that in a different way. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a really
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And ladies.
Yes. And thank you very much, listeners, for tuning in once again to our podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you've listened to our other episode as well. And there'll be many more to come. Next time we will be discussing the black sheep of the family and the very interesting film, which is Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. I'll see you then.
Bye. Bye, listeners. Thank you for listening to And Now the Podcast Starts, presented by Dan and myself, Howard Whittock, with our very special guest stars Dan Brazier and Rob Stuart-Hudson. Our specially composed theme music is by Greg Hume, and the podcast is produced by Ambidextrous Solutions Limited. If you enjoyed listening, please give the video a like on YouTube, find us on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to the Ambidextrous Solutions Limited channel.